If we set aside modern political history and treat the true scriptural gathering as an entirely future event that hasn't happened yet, the biblical timeline aligns flawlessly with the original Exodus from Egypt. This event begins while the 12 tribes of Israel are still scattered across the globe, living in modern day Egypt, which means house of bondage. Here is the exact step by step blueprint of the first Exodus, aligned with how the future second Exodus will unfold. The Bible describes two major exoduses. The first Exodus happened in the past with Moses. The second Exodus is a future event. The two events match up perfectly, step by step. Step 1, living in the world. The past. The 12 tribes of Israel lived in Egypt. They had houses and jobs, but they were still outsiders living in a foreign kingdom. The future. Today, the 12 tribes of Israel are scattered all over the world, called the diaspora. They are living normal lives in modern society, waiting for Yah's signal to leave. Step 3, the trigger to the sudden escape. The past. Egypt. Yahweh sent massive plagues to break Pharaoh's power. Sudden supernatural judgments fell on the nations to force the release of his people. On the night of the very first Passover, the final 10th plague struck Egypt. Pharaoh and the Egyptian people panicked and begged the Israelites to leave immediately. The Israelites quickly packed their unleavened dough and left their homes in Egypt. After departing from Egypt, they journeyed for several days until they came to the sea. Then Pharaoh hardened his heart and pursued the Israelites with his army and overtook them by the sea. Yahweh parts the sea to complete their escape into the deep wilderness. Just as Pharaoh's ancient tyranny forced Israel to flee, the end times sequence begins when the Antichrist sets up the abomination of desolation in a holy place and demands global worship. This blasphemous act serves as the final alarm, signaling believers to move. In response to this global crisis, when the appointed time arrives, Yahweh will intervene. With a mighty hand and an outstretched arm, he will bring his people out, judge their oppressors, and lead them into the wilderness. This future deliverance is the second Exodus, not just a return journey, but a divine act of redemption. Yahuwah gathers his scattered people from among the nations. There he pleads with them face to face, purges the rebels from among them, and preserves a faithful remnant. Under his protection, they are refined and tested until he brings them into the bond of the covenant and into the inheritance he promised to their fathers. This is not as a standard migration, but a forceful divine intervention. As stated in Ezekiel 20, verse 33, Yahweh will bring his people out from the nations where they are scattered with a mighty hand, an outstretched arm, and with fury poured out. The gathered 12 tribes are then brought directly into the wilderness of the peoples, a specific geographical zone separate from the global leader's jurisdiction. Within this isolated wilderness, the community experiences the dual reality of divine protection, where the faithful remnant are supernaturally sustained and shielded from the adversary. Step 4. The Israelites stayed in the desert for 40 years. Yah fed them miraculously, but he also tested them. The people who complained and wanted to go back to their old bad lives in Egypt never made it to the promised land. The future. The escaping believers will live in a safe wilderness area for exactly 3.5 years. Yah will nourish and defend them against the lawless leader. Just like the past, Yah will use this time to test the people. Yahweh purges the rebels from among them to ensure only a refined, faithful nation enters the promised land. Only those who truly trust Yah will pass the test. Remember, throughout Hebrew scripture, such as Ezekiel 20, verse 34. Yah promises that he will actively bring his people out from the countries where they have been scattered. Yah utilizes this isolated space to protect his people and purge out the rebels. After the faithless generation perished, a redeemed remnant led by Joshua crossed the Jordan River to possess their inheritance. The future, completion of the second Exodus. After the period of tribulation and the completion of the appointed time of testing, the gathered remnant of Israel and the faithful people who remained among the nations and endured to the end are gathered before the Messiah. The faithful people and the restored remnant enter the messianic kingdom under the rule of Yahusha.